The USS Virtue glided through the black void of space like a whisper among the stars. Its sleek hull shimmered under the distant light of a far-off sun, a lone human ship on an uncharted course. Captain Adrienne Locke stood at the bridge, her eyes sharp, scanning the view screen as her crew went about their tasks with a quiet hum of efficiency. The deep space mission had been meant to be a simple one: explore, gather data, and return home. But things never stayed simple when it came to humans. Captain, came the voice of Lieutenant Marcus Yo from the navigation console, his tone heavy with the kind of excitement only the unknown could provoke. We've arrived at the coordinates. The anomaly is right in front of us. Locke leaned forward, her lips curling into a small smile. Well, what are we waiting for? Open the channel. Let's see what's so special about this rock. The view screen flickered, then displayed the planet before them. It was a perfect sphere, swirling with clouds and vibrant green oceans. Its continents were rich with jungles and mountains that gleamed under the soft glow of its twin moons. A place that looked like it belonged in a myth, a garden untouched by time. She couldn't help but let out a low whistle. That's Eden, Locke murmured, her voice soft in awe. The crew exchanged looks, the tension of space travel momentarily forgotten. They'd found something truly remarkable, perhaps even a paradise. Looks like we've discovered a gem, Lieutenant Yo added, already calculating the best approach. The USS Virtue descended toward the planet's atmosphere, a steady hum filling the bridge. The planet was rich with life, the data streams flooding and showing complex ecosystems at every level. It was almost too perfect, too pristine. Locke's instincts pricked at the back of her mind, but she pushed it aside. It was just a planet, after all. Prepare for landing, she ordered, trying to keep her mind on the mission. Let's see what we're dealing with. The ship broke through the clouds, revealing an endless stretch of dense, green jungle. Below them, an ancient stone structure jutted out from the earth, half swallowed by the Earth's natural growth. There were no signs of life, at least none that could be detected from orbit. Setting down near the ruins, Yo confirmed, and the USS Virtue touched down with a soft shudder. The air outside the ship was thick with humidity, and a strange stillness hung in the atmosphere. The crew suited up quickly, the dull clinks of their boots ringing out in the silence. Locke led them out of the airlock, her gaze never leaving the ancient ruins in the distance. Every step felt like an echo in time, as if they were the first to tread on this soil in millennia. This place, it doesn't feel right, Locke muttered under her breath, her fingers tightening around the handle of her blaster. She wasn't sure what it was, but something about the air, the stillness, it didn't sit well. Captain, look. Ensign Claire Taylor called out, pointing toward the ruins. A flash of light. The stone structures suddenly hummed with a faint, ancient energy. Before anyone could react, the ground beneath their feet trembled. Locke's stomach dropped as the atmosphere shifted. Something ancient and powerful had just awoken. And the countdown had begun. The ground beneath the crew of the USS Virtue shuddered again, more violently this time, sending a wave of unease rippling through their ranks. Locke's fingers clenched around the blaster at her side as the faint hum of the stone ruins became louder, vibrating through the soles of her boots. The once tranquil atmosphere had thickened into something oppressive, almost as if the planet itself were holding its breath. Report, Locke barked, her voice firm, cutting through the rising tension. We got a spike in energy readings. Yo's voice came through the comm, sharp with alarm. The ruins, they're transmitting something. A signal. It's not human. Locke's eyes narrowed. She had a bad feeling. Transmissions on a loop? No, Captain. It's continuous. Almost like a beacon. And it's not just the local systems. This thing's reaching out. Fast. Her heart skipped a beat. A beacon. And it wasn't just reaching the local vicinity. They were too deep in space for it to be anything normal. Whatever this was, it had to be important. And if it was calling out, someone or something would come. Get back to the ship now, Locke commanded, already turning on her heel, her boots crunching against the damp earth. As the crew began to retreat toward the USS Virtue, the air crackled with an unnatural static, an invisible pressure building like a storm about to break. Locke scanned the sky. Her gut was telling her something was very wrong. She wasn't sure how much time they had, but they weren't going to be alone for long. Then the ship's alarms went off. An explosion of red light lit up the cockpit as the communication system blared. Captain, we've got incoming, multiple signatures. They're not ours. Locke's blood ran cold. What do you mean by not ours? I mean alien warships, lots of them, and they're closing in fast. Before Locke could respond, a pulse of energy shot across the sky, breaking the silence like thunder. It struck the atmosphere, splintering the air into jagged waves of energy that rippled outward, each pulse sending waves of distortion through the ship's sensors. The energy didn't just stay localized, it spread, stretching toward distant star systems, activating dormant alarms across the galaxy. The crew stood frozen, watching the sky light up in erratic bursts as if the entire universe had just been put on notice. Who the hell would send a fleet for this? Locke muttered under her breath, her mind racing. She knew the answer already. This was no accident. The beacon had woken something, or someone ancient and angry. The ship shuddered again as the first wave of alien ships broke the atmosphere, dark silhouettes cutting through the misty clouds like predators hunting their prey. Locke's instincts kicked in. She didn't have time to wonder who was coming or why. They were under attack, and it was up to her to keep her crew alive. Ensign Taylor, power up the weapons systems. We're going to need every ounce of firepower, Locke ordered, her voice cold and steady. As the alien ships drew closer, a metallic screech echoed in the distance. A voice crackled through the comms, distorted but clear. It was a warning, a message in a language none of them could understand. But the meaning behind it was obvious: retreat or die. Locke glanced back at her crew, her gaze fierce. Brace yourselves, people, it's going to get ugly. With one final glance at the glowing beacon, she turned and ran toward the US of Virtue. The countdown had begun, but this time, they weren't running from an ancient weapon. They were running from the galaxy itself. For Omini, the USS Virtue shuddered violently as it rose into the sky, the engines straining under the pressure of the alien warships closing in. Captain Locke gripped the armrest of her command chair, her knuckles white as the ship's hull groaned under the weight of enemy fire. Sparks flew across the bridge as one of the external shields failed, and a wave of heat washed over them, almost suffocating. Status. Locke barked, her voice cutting through the chaos. Shields at 50%. Yo called out from the navigation station, his face grim. We're not going to make it with these odds, Captain. We need backup. Not happening, Locke said, her eyes scanning the chaos unfolding on the view screen. The alien fleet, huge, dark, and menacing, seemed to be everywhere. They moved with precision, their ships like hungry wolves closing in on their prey. We can't outrun them, Lieutenant Claire Taylor, the weapons officer, reported, her voice tense. We'll have to fight our way out. Locke's gaze hardened. She knew they were outgunned and outnumbered, but humanity's survival instincts had never been about surrender. They didn't just give up. They adapted. Prepare all weapons. Get ready to punch through them, Locke ordered. The bridge hummed to life as the crew scrambled to engage the ship's offensive systems. The US at Virtue wasn't built for heavy combat, but it was agile. And agility was their best chance at survival. Captain, incoming fire. Yo shouted as the first salvo from the alien ships rained down upon them. The USS Virtue jolted as the blast struck, sending the crew sprawling. Sparks erupted in all directions, the lights flickering like a dying candle. Locke didn't flinch. She grabbed the comms, her voice icy. All hands, brace for impact. I need every ounce of focus now. The USS Virtue rocked again, but this time it was different. More violent, more calculated. They weren't just being attacked by random shots. The alien fleet had a plan. The ships were moving in formation, cutting off their escape route with precision. They were being herded. Locke's eyes narrowed as the realization hit her. They're herding us. Into a trap, she muttered under her breath. The beacon, whatever it was a signal, a call. We're being hunted, Taylor added, her voice tight. Captain, we need to get out of here. We're sitting ducks. We're not going anywhere until we know who's behind this, Locke said, her jaw clenched. I don't care how many ships they have, we are not backing down. Another round of fire slammed into the US of Virtue, sending the ship lurching sideways. This time, it felt like the entire ship was about to break apart. The starboard engine sputtered, its glow dimming. Damn it, Locke hissed, slamming a fist on the armrest. The USS Virtue was a sitting target, with no way to escape. The alien ships were closing in, their weapons charging again. Then a new sound cut through the chaos, a low, ominous hum, unlike anything the crew had heard before. The tone was almost alive. The strange energy pulses that had been emanating from the planet below were now intensifying. The beacon was calling to something beyond just the alien ships. Something else was coming. What in the hell is that? Yo asked, his eyes wide with confusion and fear. Locke's breath hitched as the screens flickered, showing the dark void of space around them. And then something changed. A massive ship, far larger than anything they had seen, materialized out of the blackness of space. Its dark hull gleamed with an eerie, otherworldly glow, and its sleek silhouette seemed to stretch on forever. It was a warship, but not like any she had ever encountered. Before she could speak, the comms crackled again, this time in a language she didn't understand. The message was unmistakable, direct and commanding. "Get ready," Locke whispered, her voice cold with resolve. "We're about to meet whoever is pulling the strings." The alien warship's massive engines flared to life as it moved toward them. The trap had been set, and now it was time for humanity to see who the real enemy was. The USS Virtue trembled as it floated in the midst of the alien fleet, its hull still buckling from the relentless barrage of laser fire. But the real danger now wasn't the weapons. It was the ominous warship that loomed larger and larger in their view, its alien form both sleek and terrifying. It didn't belong in their galaxy. It didn't even belong in their understanding. "Captain," Lieutenant Taylor's voice broke through the tension. "They're opening a comm channel. We're being hailed." Locke clenched her jaw, her mind racing. They had no idea who these beings were, what they wanted, or why they had come. But one thing was clear. The calm diplomacy that humanity had built its reputation on wasn't going to work here. Still, she had to try. "Put it through," Locke ordered, standing tall as she braced herself for what was about to come. The comm screen flickered and then stabilized, revealing a figure that almost made Locke's breath catch in her throat. The alien standing before them was tall, thin, and radiated an unsettling air of control. Its skin was a pale, almost translucent shade of blue, and its sharp, angular features were like a mask of serene indifference. The alien's eyes, glowing faintly with an unearthly light, fixed directly on Locke with an unnerving calm. "I am Thrix." The alien's voice came through in a low, almost melodic tone, but there was no warmth in it. "You have trespassed into a sacred realm, human. You have disturbed what should remain undisturbed." Locke's fingers flexed on the armrest of her chair. Every instinct screamed at her to draw her blaster, but she forced herself to remain steady, to focus. Diplomacy. She was the voice of humanity right now, whether she liked it or not. "We didn't mean any harm," she began, her voice steady but laced with a thin thread of tension. "We came to explore, to understand. This is a peaceful mission." The alien's gaze hardened, and for a moment Locke thought she saw a flicker of something cold and dangerous. "Your presence here has triggered the awakening of ancient forces, forces you cannot begin to comprehend. This is no mere planet, no simple world for your kind to explore. It is a weapon, a deadlier one than you can imagine." Locke's stomach sank. She'd known it, hadn't she? The way the ruins had hummed with energy, the sense of foreboding in the air. But hearing it confirmed by the alien was like a punch to the gut. This was no ordinary place. This was something much darker, something they had awoken by accident. "Then help us," Locke said, her voice not losing its edge of determination. "Help us fix what we've done. We didn't mean to trigger whatever this is. We'll leave, but we need your help." The Thrix's expression remained unreadable, its eyes flicking over Locke's face as though weighing her very soul. "You are in no position to negotiate. Your kind's meddling has already set things in motion. You cannot undo it." "Then we'll do whatever it takes to stop it," Locke replied, her voice hardening. "We're not going to stand by and let the galaxy burn because of an accident." The alien's lips curled into a faint, cold smile, if it could even be called that. "You misunderstand, human. It is not an accident. You are the catalyst. Your kind is the one who will bring about the end." Before Locke could respond, the comm channel cut off, leaving only the eerie hum of the alien ship's engines in the background. The screen flickered again, but this time it didn't display the Thrix. Instead, it showed a galaxy map, an ancient map, marked with red, pulsating dots spreading out from the planet below, each one expanding faster than Locke could comprehend. The signal was out there. The galaxy was on the brink of something much bigger than anyone had imagined. "Captain," Yo said quietly from his station, "It's starting." The countdown had begun. The USS Virtue was silent inside, save for the quiet hum of the damaged engines and the steady beeping of the failing systems. Outside, the alien fleet had stopped firing. They didn't need to anymore. The damage was done, and the real threat had only just begun. Captain Locke stood in the middle of the darkened bridge, staring at the glowing galaxy map on the main screen. The red pulses were no longer spreading, they were flaring. Entire star systems blinked red in rapid succession, each one falling like a domino. They weren't just under alert, they were being consumed. "What's happening out there?" she asked, not looking away. Yo's voice was low, almost reverent. "It's not just a signal anymore. It's rewriting systems, warping gravity, shutting down satellites and probes across the sector. The signal is, Captain, I think it's intelligent." Locke turned sharply. "You mean it's alive?" "No, not alive," Taylor said quietly from the weapons console. "But it remembers. It's not just a weapon. It's a warning, like a sleeping beast reacting to a scratch." Suddenly, the ship's lights flickered, and a deep vibration rattled through the walls. The floor beneath them throbbed like a pulse, slow, steady, ancient. Locke moved to the console. "What the hell was that?" "It came from the planet," Yov said, pulling up data on his screen. "Massive tectonic movement. Energy surging from the ruins. Something beneath the surface is waking up." As if in answer, the planet below began to split open. On the view screen, they watched in stunned silence as cracks webbed across the surface of Eden. The jungle canopy split apart, and something enormous stirred beneath it. Something mechanical, something alien. A towering monolith of metal and stone began rising from the depths, crowned with glowing red sidles that pulsed like a heartbeat. "Is that a ship?" Taylor whispered. "No," Locke said. "That's a launch system." A rumbling voice boomed across all frequencies, low, guttural, and layered with static. It wasn't the Fricks this time. This voice was older, deeper, colder. "Relead cycle complete. Purge commencing." A flash of light burst from the monolith, racing skyward in a spiral of crimson energy. The clouds parted. The stars beyond it bent and twisted like reflections in rippling water. A wormhole had just opened, and something massive was coming through. Locke's stomach dropped. "Taylor, prep our jump drive." "Yo, plot the fastest course away from this hellhole." "Captain, the wormhole is distorting subspace. We can't jump. Not yet." Locke's fists clenched. "Then we buy time. All weapons to forward batteries." The alien warship, Thrix's vessel, had moved away, making space around the rising monolith. Their ships weren't attacking. They were watching. They'd known this would happen. Locke stood tall in the center of the chaos. She had seen humanity stand against worse odds before. She'd seen the impossible become survival. Now she would see if they could survive this. The countdown was over. Whatever was coming through that wormhole was already awake. The USS Virtue shook again, this time with a force that rattled the very bones of the ship. The warning lights flashed red, and the low hum of the failing systems grew louder in the bridge's atmosphere. Outside the view screen, the wormhole continued to twist and churn, a deep vortex in space that seemed to pulse with malevolent energy. "Captain, we're losing all subspace communications," Yo reported, his voice tight with frustration. "The wormhole's interfering with our systems. It's scrambling our data. It's like it's trying to block us from escaping." Locke's eyes locked onto the dark abyss of the wormhole. Her pulse quickened, a cold knot of fear twisting in her stomach. The Thrix warships hadn't moved yet. They were still watching. But that was the problem. It was like they knew something she didn't. Something was coming, something far worse than anything she prepared for. "Taylor, any luck with those weapons?" Locke asked, turning sharply to her weapons officer. "No, Captain," Taylor replied, her voice strained. "We can't lock onto any targets. Our forward batteries are barely functional. It's as if the entire system's being drained of power. We need more time to get the engines back online." The air around them seemed to thicken, as if the ship itself was beginning to suffocate under the weight of the surrounding forces. Locke gripped the edge of her chair, staring into the maw of the wormhole. She could feel it, the oppressive weight of whatever was on the other side of that twisting void. It wasn't just a ship. It wasn't even an army. It was a force. "Captain," Yo said, his voice suddenly breaking through the tension. "You need to see this." He turned his station toward Locke. A live feed flickered to life, showing a massive figure emerging from the swirling darkness of the wormhole. At first, it was just a silhouette, a black shadow against the glowing red light of the event horizon. But then the form became clearer. A colossal serpentine shape, scales like burnished steel, glowing with strange, shifting patterns, slithered out of the rift. It was unlike anything human eyes had ever seen. It was a creature, a living, breathing entity, larger than a planet. It stretched across the sky like a dragon waking from a thousand-year slumber. Its eyes, too many, each one burning with a cold blue flame, fixed on the USF Virtue like a predator spotting its prey. There was no mistaking it now. The Virtue was nothing more than a tiny insect beneath the gaze of this creature. "What the hell is that?" Taylor whispered, her voice trembling. "Whatever it is," Locke said, her voice eerily calm, "it's here." The creature exhaled, and the very fabric of space seemed to shudder. Waves of energy pulse outward from its form, tearing at the edges of the wormhole. The force sent a shockwave rippling through the USF Virtue, knocking the crew to their feet. "Race!" Locke shouted, her mind racing. "Yo, get us the hell out of here." But before he could respond, a voice echoed over the ship's comms, cold and alien, vibrating through the hole like a death knell. "You are insignificant, human. This cycle will end, and you will cease to exist." Locke's blood ran cold. This wasn't a warning. It was a promise. And in that moment she knew, they weren't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting for their very place in the universe. And whatever was coming through that wormhole, it was only the beginning. The ship's hull groaned under the pressure, its systems flickering like a dying star. Every part of the USF Virtue seemed to be struggling to keep them together, from the failing power conduits to the dangerously unstable shields. Locke felt the vibrations beneath her boots, each tremor a reminder that their time was running out. Outside the viewport, the creature, it loomed larger, its massive form blotting out the stars. The wormhole that had birthed it pulsed violently, sending waves of energy crashing through the fabric of space, distorting everything in its wake. The air around the Virtue felt heavier, charged with something ancient and unfathomable. It was a force of nature, a behemoth so powerful that everything around it seemed insignificant, like dust in the wind. "Captain," Yo's voice broke through the static, frantic. "I can't stabilize the ship. The rift, it's tearing our systems apart. We need to get out of here now." "Shut down non-essential systems," Locke ordered, her voice cutting through the panic. "We need every ounce of power to our engines. I don't care if we're limping out of here, just get us moving." Taylor's fingers flew across her console. "Weapons are useless against that thing," she said, her voice thick with disbelief. "It's like a god of destruction. How do we even fight something like that?" Locke's eyes remained fixed on the massive creature outside, her mind racing. Their options were limited. The alien fleet might have been watching them before, but now it was clear that they were no longer a concern. Whatever was coming through that wormhole was the real threat. The alien ships had retreated to the edges of the system, and the giant creature was now the center of everything. "We don't fight it, Taylor," Locke said, a chill creeping into her voice. "We survive." But as she spoke, the monster let out a roar, an unnatural, bone-shaking sound that seemed to tear through the very air. The sound didn't just come through the comms. It came through their bones. It rattled every nerve in their bodies, sending waves of dread through the entire crew. The creature's eyes, countless, burning with cold fire, shifted toward the USF Virtue. Its gaze seemed to freeze time itself. Locke's breath caught in her throat as she realized just how small they were, how utterly powerless. "We have to go," Yo said urgently, his fingers flying across the controls. "Captain, the energy readings. This thing is collapsing the entire system. The planet's core is destabilizing. If we don't leave now, we'll be caught in the destruction." "Plot a course now," Locke barked, her heart pounding in her chest. "Take us to the nearest jump point, any way you can get us there." Yao's hands moved at lightning speed, his mind working faster than she could follow. But before he could enter the final coordinates, the creature let out another roar, this time accompanied by a wave of energy so intense that it felt like the ship's very atoms were being pulled apart. "Brace!" Locke shouted. The entire ship lurched as the wave slammed into them, throwing the crew from their seats. The force was like being hit by a planet-sized fist, and for a moment, Locke thought they were done for. She held onto the armrest with both hands, her knuckles white as she gritted her teeth against the force. "Power's down to 15%. Yaw yelled. "We won't make it if we don't jump now." Locke forced herself to stand, ignoring the dizzying sensation that overtook her. The USS Virtue had escaped the gravitational pull of the dying system, but it was a fragile victory. The jump had been made with seconds to spare, and the ship's engines sputtered as though they, too, had been pushed to their limits. Silence hummed heavy in the bridge, broken only by the soft beeping of the damaged systems and the faint hum of the barely functioning power core. Locke stood at the front of the bridge, staring at the star map on the screen. They were in uncharted space now, far from the wormhole, far from the creature that had nearly torn them apart. But the relief she'd expected to feel was absent. The images of the massive being, its unblinking eyes, the destruction it had left in its wake, haunted her. No matter how far they traveled, she knew one thing: they weren't safe. Not yet. Captain, Yo's voice broke the stillness, his words heavy with worry. We've made the jump, but the ship's barely holding together. We've lost most of the engines, and the subspace relays are fried. We can't communicate with anyone. We're isolated. Understood, Locke said, her voice tight. She could feel the weight of the situation, but there was no time for panic. The crew needed her to remain calm. Start emergency repairs. I'll be down in a minute. Captain, Taylor's voice cut in from the weapons console. There's more. I've been running diagnostics on our weapons systems, and it's bad. We're inoperable, completely. Whatever that thing was, it didn't just damage our ship. It's like it siphoned our power. Locke turned slowly, her eyes narrowing. She already suspected as much. The feeling in her gut hadn't lied. What are you saying? I think it was feeding off us. The energy we used to escape, everything that was powered up, including our weapons. It's gone. Locke's fingers tightened into fists. They were stranded, with no way to defend themselves, no way to call for help. They were vulnerable, floating in the void, at the mercy of whatever or whoever came next. Damn it, she muttered under her breath. We're not alone out here, are we? Yo's voice was grim as he surveyed the empty space around them. That thing, that creature, it's out there, isn't it? Locke's gaze moved back to the screen. They were in the deep black of space now, surrounded by stars so distant they seemed like forgotten embers of a long-dead fire. The silence felt like a pressure on her chest. The wormhole was gone. The galaxy had moved on. But the threat hadn't vanished. She could feel it in her bones. If it wanted to finish us off, it could have done it back there, Locke said, though she wasn't entirely convinced. But there's something bigger here. The Thrix, the aliens who brought us here. They knew this would happen. They're not here to help us, and they're not here to kill us. They're watching us. But why? The words felt empty as they left her mouth. The truth was they didn't know why. The why was the part that kept her awake at night. They were caught in a game far bigger than themselves, and the Thrix were players, whether they were allies or enemies. Locke couldn't tell yet. Captain, Yo said slowly, the signal from the wormhole. It's still there. Faint, but it's still there. Locke looked at him sharply. You're sure? Yeah, he nodded. It's not gone. It's just hiding, like it's waiting. A shiver ran down her spine. They had no weapons, no power, and the universe was watching them. Get us as far away from this system as possible, Locke said, her voice hard as steel. I don't know what's coming next, but we're going to be ready. The Virtue groaned beneath them as the engines came back online, sluggish but functional. They were alone for now, but the real danger was still out there. The galaxy had just changed, and it was only a matter of time before it came knocking on their door.